Number 1. The trade with holy relics. If you're not too familiar with medieval terminology, relics are basically the remains of saints or martyrs that people collected like baseball cards. But there was at least one problem with this. 99.9% of these relics were complete and total fakes. People believed these holy objects had supernatural powers. They could heal diseases, offer protection, or give you direct access to God. So what happens when the demand for a product is high? A bunch of shady characters show up to keep the market going. Medieval con artists began selling body parts that supposedly belonged to saints, apostles, or, in one particularly special case, Jesus himself. You could literally buy anything, from a splinter of the true cross to the foreskin of Jesus Christ. Yes, you heard that right, the foreskin of Jesus. The craziest part is that some towns claimed to possess the same body parts from the same saint. Let's say you wanted a piece of John the Baptist. You could travel to half a dozen different cities in Europe, and each one would claim to have the real head of John. I'm no forensic expert, but I'm pretty sure the man only had one skull. Here's another strange example. At one point, there were supposedly so many authentic pieces of Jesus' cross that if you put them all together, you'd have enough wood to build Noah's Ark. Not once, but twice. Number 2. Fraudulent miracle healers. These guys were like the medieval version of televangelists who claimed to heal people by touching their foreheads. Only they traveled around performing cheap tricks to convince people they had supernatural powers. One of the most notorious miracle fraudsters was a guy named Simon Negus. Simon had all kinds of tricks up his sleeve, from fake levitation to magically conjuring food out of nowhere. People were convinced he was the real deal and showered him with money and gifts. One time, Simon even convinced a crowd that he could fly. Spoiler, he absolutely could not. The trick involved some wires and a very poorly timed gust of wind, which ended with Simon face-planting into the ground. His career as a miracle healer didn't last much longer after that. But Simon was just one of many miracle healers. Some planted fake sick people in the crowd and then appeared to heal them. Others claimed to possess magical relics that could cure diseases or even raise the dead. People were so desperate for miracles that they gave these frauds their life savings, only to be left with empty pockets and broken faith. Number 3. The fake saints. You've probably heard of famous saints like St. Peter, St. Francis, or St. Augustine, but did you know there was once a booming business in inventing completely fake saints? One example is St. Guinefort, the greyhound saint. St. Guinefort was a dog who, according to legend, saved a baby from a snake and later died a martyr's death. The locals decided that this good boy deserved sainthood, and soon there was a shrine where people prayed for Guinefort's blessing. But here's the catch. The church absolutely did not approve of dog saints. They didn't want people praying to some random greyhound, so they tried to shut the whole thing down. But the villagers thought, we like the dog better than the human saints, and kept the shrine going for centuries. Eventually, the church just gave up. But that wasn't all. Medieval clergy also invented human saints out of thin air. They crafted elaborate stories about their miracles, started selling relics, and boom, a new pilgrimage site was born, which of course brought in money from travelers. Number 4. The pilgrimage scam. Pilgrimages were a big deal in the Middle Ages. People believed that visiting the holy site, whether Jerusalem, Rome, or some obscure village church with a toenail of St. Stephen, could bring them forgiveness of sins and closeness to God. Naturally, the church quickly figured out how to monetize this. Take the church of Saint-Four in France, which claimed to possess the remains of a young martyr capable of performing miracles. Thousands of people made pilgrimages there every year to honor Saint Foy and hope for divine intervention. But here's the catch. The church didn't actually have the remains of Saint Foy, at least not the whole time. Medieval clergy literally stole corpses from one another to boost their pilgrimage sites. And this nonsense wasn't even a secret. They even bragged about it, like it was some kind of holy competition. Number 5. The selling of indulgences, or hell insurance. Indulgences were kind of like the church's go straight to heaven card. Imagine you've spent your life doing terrible things, looting, lying, maybe a little bit of murder, and now you're worried about eternal damnation. Don't worry. The church had a solution, but only for a price. You paid a hefty sum of money and in return got a shiny certificate that confirmed, congratulations, you don't have to go to hell for that thing. As you might guess, the whole indulgence system was extremely prone to corruption. Priests and bishops sold indulgences like at a medieval flea market. The more you paid, the more sins you could get rid of. You could even pay in advance for sins you were planning to commit. This was so lucrative that some churches became obscenely rich while ordinary people went bankrupt trying to save their souls. And of course, this scam was one of the main reasons Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door and kicked off the Reformation. Number 6. A pope put his dead predecessor on trial. You think modern political drama is wild, you have no idea. Let me introduce you to Pope Stephen VI and his wonderfully named predecessor, Pope Formosus. These two did not get along, mainly because Stephen VI believed Formosus was illegitimate in practically every way. And what do you do if you don't like someone and happen to be the Pope? In the year 897, Pope Stephen actually had the corpse of Pope Formosus exhumed, dressed it in full papal regalia, sat the decaying body on a throne, and launched what history now calls the Cadaver Synod. Stephen had a deacon speak on the corpse's behalf and basically turned the whole thing into a kind of live puppet show. Imagine a dead Pope marionette as a witness. That's the level of courtroom drama we're talking about. Formosus was accused of perjury and violating church law and, surprise, was found guilty. And in case you're wondering what happens to a convicted corpse in the 9th century, no, they didn't just toss him in jail or something. Instead, they stripped off the papal garments, chopped off the fingers he had used to bless people, and threw the body into the Tiber River. But it gets better. The people of Rome were not thrilled with this move. They thought it was a bit much, even by medieval standards. Shortly after the trial, Pope Stephen VI was thrown into prison and then strangled. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.